You're listening to Knives in Monroe versus the podcast, and we're here to make you think about death and sad stuff.
Welcome to another episode of Knives Monroe versus the podcast. I'm your host, Knives Monroe. How you guys doing? Hopefully you're doing well. I've been struggling with who am I talking to, my audience, and I'll tell you why. Because I've always been a selfish artist. Can you relate to that? Do you find yourself making content or art or media for other people, in service to them, for the betterment of a culture or something? Or are you making it because you have an itch to scratch? I make a lot of my art because I have an itch to scratch. That's what this podcast is. Now, in my mission statement for the podcast, I say it's for dormant creatives. This is about activating dormant creatives. And that's what's true in my heart. That's how I feel. The best conversations that I have on this podcast are with other artists, are with my guests. And I feel like we get to the bottom of what this podcast is truly about when I have a guest on the show. But oftentimes we do these solo podcasts, these little mini-sodes of just me ranting in front of a camera and a microphone. And for some reason, I'm very comfortable doing that. I just am. Maybe I'm crazy. But I do think you need to be a little crazy to do this. So back to my selfish itch that I need to scratch when it comes to making art. My first feature film in 2012, I made it for me. I made it because I was tired of being an aspirational filmmaker, an aspiring filmmaker. One day I'll make a movie. I just wanted to get that over with. It was like having sex and losing your virginity and just getting it over with. So it was no longer a mind fuck. I was official. It was selfish. My second movie, very selfish. Third movie, even more self-indulgent. I just like to scratch my itch. I like playing. You know, I do it for me. I do it for me first. There's a conflict. There's a conflict of ideology when it comes to why you make stuff. I do it because it satisfies me. I do it because it keeps the demons at bay, the consequences of inaction that I procrastinate, which eventually all rise to the surface. Making art just keeps that stuff at bay. Making this podcast is a version of that. I don't know if you can relate to this. Why do you make what you make? If it's all dopamine at the end of the day, then what does it matter? I've just never been really good at selling stuff, selling material, whether if that's trying to acquire sponsors or sell products or services. I'm all for just going for the ask and asking someone to buy something. I think that's the best thing you can do when you've given enough value up front. But that's not what this podcast is. This is a podcast as a creative, as an independent filmmaker, which is what I am first and foremost in my bones, until the day I die. But this is like, imagine if you can watch or listen to 100 episodes of Quentin Tarantino's podcast before he made Reservoir Dogs. That's how I kind of feel this is in a lot of ways. Wouldn't you want to go back to that, listen to that? Maybe one day I'll make a movie and it'll pop and people will recontextualize this podcast, go back to it and be like, whoa, look at all this stuff. I think that's why I make it too. And so it's like creating this critical mass that when you reach a certain mainstream level that people can go back and be like, wow, all this stuff was there. Knives made 200 podcasts before he made a movie that I cared about. None of the content or the art that you make with people is going to be their favorite thing all the time. I've always had this philosophy, rather, of I just need one person, one 16-year-old Knives Monroe out there to hear just one piece of this content and it clicks for them. And I can tell you with as much reverence, and I'm trying to be as humble as possible here because it's very personal and dear to me. I can tell you that people have reached out and have told me that I've inspired them. I can tell you that I've made content, whether if it's Facebook rants or YouTube videos, feature films, social media, whatever. And people have reached out and said, man, I was just about ready to hang it up, give up, and then you reignited something in me. Well, for me, it's happened 10 times. And I cannot tell you how good that feels. There's nothing better than scratching your own itch, making a piece of art for yourself on your own terms, and it resonates with people, and it connects with them, it inspires them, and reignites the flame for their passion. That's my pocket, baby. That's what I love. Could I become better at communicating that? Always. Every day I get better. I'm better today than I was yesterday. And I'm better this year than I was last year and the year before that. I try to be anyways. You have to. And then people will tell you, he's getting a big head. He's getting a big head. He let it go to his head. Winners don't tell you that. People who are masters don't tell you that. He's letting it go to his head. Because they're too busy trying to better themselves. And I love betterment. Watch Jiro Dreams of Sushi. You're not going to have other sushi masters around him say, Jiro's letting it go to his head. He's putting in the work. I'm definitely nowhere even fucking near Jiro. But I aspire to be. And I don't go out and I neg other people's content. I don't do that. Even if I don't like it, I don't do that. But people do that to me. And I think they do that for two reasons. Number one, if I could give them attention, I'm scratching their itch. They get dopamine out of that. Number two, I think they know I can take it. I think they know that I have an elastic heart and I can stretch it from one end to the other. They also know that I'm the bigger man. I'm not going to be angry at them forever and I'll let it go and we can move on and it makes us tighter. People have reached out to me recently and said, I've let the success go to my head. Which is interesting because on one hand, I still feel like I'm on first base. And on the other hand, I feel like everything else in my life that I accumulate is extra. It's gravy. I'm lucky and grateful in that regard. So it's strange. I let it go to my head. The two things I have let go to my head, and I will accept compliments. Hey, I'm making a podcast. You want to come in and say something? Okay, can you put up the do not disturb then? Thanks, beautiful. She came right on cue because what I was just about to say is the two things that I do let go to my head. Close the door, baby. Yeah, sure. Number one is my kids. She came right on cue, I'm telling you. Number one is my kids. Like, my aunt a couple weeks ago told me that I was a good father. I said, you're damn right I am. And I just know that. I show up for them. I love them. My whole life, since they've been in my life, has been in service for them. Everything else, I put second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. I put myself last, you know. I might not be where I want to be, but Knives, the dad, I love that guy. He's everything I wanted as a kid. If I was raising 12-year-old me, best believe I'd be whooping that kid's ass, whipping him into shape. But I didn't have that growing up, right? So being a good dad makes me proud, very proud. And my relationship with my spouse, my partner, Claire, I wouldn't trade that for fucking anything in the world. It's the best thing I have. And my life got good when she came into my life. And success is really just the quality of your relationships with the people that support you and care about you the most. And that's my family. And I'm grateful for that. On one end, I've scratched the itch, the mighty itches of creativity, the movies that I've been wanting to make. I'm writing one right now. It's excited me in a way that I haven't felt this way in years. I'm going to make that. But I kind of feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Could I be doing more? Yeah. Could the quality be better? Of course, it could always be better. But I got to get these experiments and these things out. I have to get these things off my chest, and I have to be me. And I have to chronicle the journey, whether or not that makes sense to you at this time. Because it's going to make sense to somebody when they need to hear it. And I trust that because that's been a consistency in my life. I could go on and on and on, but we'll save that for the next podcast. If I could leave you with anything, it will be this. When people tell you that you have a big head, you let it go to your head. You've changed, man. You tell them, you're goddamn right I've changed. You can't acquire what you want to acquire, your desires, your dreams, your passions, with the same level of consciousness that you started out with pre-call to adventure. You have to change. That's growth. That's your arc. You're not the same person in the third act as you were in the first act. That's what growth is. And as far as letting things go to your head, what are you proud about? Are you proud of your health? Are you proud of the relationship with your parents, with your spouse, with your kids? What are you proud of? You probably definitely have something to be proud of that was in a much worse shape in the past. Don't let anybody gaslight you and tell you that you should feel ashamed for that. The truth is, for people that don't know who I was just 5 years ago, you have no idea. You have no idea. When my daughter was born, I was flipping burgers. So don't come at me with that. I'm happy for what I have. I'm grateful. And it's not like a flexing, shove it in your face kind of thing. Like I cringe at that and I resent that. But you're not going to take away my victories, man. And don't let anybody take away your victories. My name is Knives Monroe. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't, please subscribe, follow, and rate this podcast 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 stars. It doesn't matter. Just be honest, be truthful. Keep a force field around your heart. And I'll see you guys on the next podcast. Thank you for listening.
Never ever believe anything you hear. And believe only half of what you see. And always, forever and ever and ever, put a force field around your heart. And I love you. Let me down.